And we're live. How you guys doing today? Stefan,
Hello, this is Black. I'm good.
we got Black. All right. And we have Stefanos. Say your name or say hello.
Hello,
And we got
morning
Sharp T.
guys.
Sharp T in the
Hello.
house. All right. Today we're gonna do a debrief of our last Reservoir League match. We just finished earlier today. We were going up against State 285 Alliance Ph1. We totally dominated them, and really not much on the strategic point of how to win the match we're going to go over. Really going to just kind of go over what to do in this type of situation, taking advantage to basically get rewards for your alliance members. So we'll play the video. I'm going to fast forward it. It was so boring, to say the least. With very little competition, that I was playing 3 accounts. I normally don't play 3 accounts on Reservoir matches, but today, the first. So, Black, I'll just kind of open up the floor to you, because you kind of really wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. In fact, you saw this coming from a week ago when you're like, hey, our next matchup is going to be probably an easy one. We should think about how we're going to help members that are not hitting the points threshold to get the most rewards. Want to start off?
So, I didn't actually. Well, based on the Reservoir League thing, which is still quite new to us as an alliance, the main thing people will look at normally when it comes to this is the raid score, and on paper there was like a massive mismatch. And when certain players like Jin, and we have someone else in our alliance, went to the other state to look for their hive around trap, we could see, based on their members in that alliance, that our starting 15, our starting 30 to theirs was going to be greatly stronger. So coming into it, we looked at their strongest player and our strongest player. You'll probably hear me and Jin, and when Stephanos wants to join, him say that a lot of raid will be dictated by the strongest players on the pitch, because you can have a really strong alliance where everyone's a 4-star, but if one alliance has 3, crazy strong 5-stars, and everyone joins those 5-stars, that alliance will win. And we looked at their strongest player and they only had 1, and the gap between their top end to their bottom was too big. So quite early on, Jin and I were talking about, it looks like a mixed match, it looks like we're going to win. So now we know the win's going to be in our favor. It was more of a how to capitalize on rewards. Main difference here is being that when you win, you essentially double the rewards you earn than when you lose. And in the raid score, when you click on the score at the top where the timer is, you can see and explore and see different point thresholds to get a certain number of fragments. So I'm not sure if that's what you wanted me to go into, Jin, but I guess that's an intro in a way.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just having fun watching watching the match all over again. Yeah, I mean, yeah. At that point, we did get a little excited, and even myself, we're trying to solo attacks. Stefanos kind of say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Makes no sense to do the solo attacks on their 5-star. You're not going to win. All you're going to do is power level their score up." And Stefanos, you suggested to do the rallies so that we can bleed down their troops. So then we can, once they caught fire, then we can set the solo marches. So as we were doing that, which is good because we want to be careful to overextend ourselves. If we would have done that with our top players, solo marching against their top players, ultimately losing more troops and maybe even be lower troops than they do, they could potentially break out of their shell, come out of the safe zone, and catch up and maybe snack a win. I mean, obviously not in this case, but there's something to think about when we try things. You just got to think it through. Don't just go in, dive, feet first kind of deal. Um, but we were constantly scrubbing the scoreboard. Where you can click near the teardrop up at the top middle of each screen, and just policing our alliance list and checking the thresholds. Who has who's the closest to getting 180,000 points? I think was it 180,000 or higher is the for the maximum rewards.
So the top reward is 180,000. So that gives you 10 fragments for win. The next one was 90,000, I believe, for 8 fragments. Then I think it's 42,000 for 6 fragments. Then I don't know the point threshold for 4 fragments, but it's really low. But yeah, on that point about soloing attacks, especially on their strongest players, in a normal raid you wouldn't do that. So even when you're trying to maximize your player's score, it doesn't make sense to start doing something which doesn't make sense. A 5-star typically will be very strong count, and if you're soloing marching their base to try and get points, you're only realistically going to injure 2,000, 4,000 of their troops at a max, and you can easily empty yourself and your base of troops and leave yourself very vulnerable to attacks. And as I like to say, raid and state v state have a lot of parallels when you look at attacking, holding buildings, solo attacking bases to try and burn down their troops. There's a lot of parallels, and it's never smart essentially to solo a 5-star because they either have enough troops or they have enough stats to protect their base. So in a situation like this where we outpower them with not only our strength but also in numbers, only I think 10 of them rocked up, Jin, wasn't it, at maximum?
Yeah, I think so.
At that point, they only had a finite number of troops, so you want to kind of maximize everyone getting on that point killing action. So one thing we did straight away is saying that for any of the 5-stars not to 0 or solo march any of the 3 stars and below players they had, because to do that, for instance, with our main account Mishu as Alliance, if I was to solo march a 3-star, let's say, depending on their strength, and he had 1 million troops, I could kill 300k of those troops by myself in that solo march, massively inflating my own score, and that takes away from everyone else in the Alliance needing those points to get those rewards. So in a situation like that where you're trying to get everyone up to the thresholds, you're going to be looking more for defensive wins. So you'll have your 2-stars and 1-stars reinforced. So when a 5-star or someone attacks them, they'll be able to defend and get the points of that. And when it's their bigger players, rallying them, so that when you hit, even if you lose, running under your best player stats, you're more likely to wound a good portion of their troops. And yeah, it's a lot better to injure 4K. So there's that.
Yeah. And I think it was Stefanos actually was taunting them. Another strategy to try to pull the enemy to attack you. He ported to right in front of their safe zone where everybody else was just sitting, and they were solo attacking him on his base right there in front of the safe zone. And then he ported out so that Sharp T, I think you went there too, to try to get them to attack you.
Yeah, they just kept on going after Preacher after that.
Oh, it was
They
Preacher.
didn't like me.
Yeah. I don't know why. I guess I'm surprised they didn't go after you though. They should have. But
Yeah,
I
I
think I got 1 rally with 1,000 troops.
Ah.
Yeah, one attack with 1,000 troops.
yeah, they probably didn't have enough troops left.
So I imagine
Yeah.
they probably looked at Sharp's main march with his stats and be like, there's no point. And I think because Preach actually reinforced Sharp, his second or third march in his base was weaker technically in stats in a weird way. So he probably went for Sharp Preacher trying to get more points that way, but either way, they weren't going to burn Sharp or Preacher in that scenario.
Right.
Um,
I was watching
Yeah.
another stream, you know, at the 1900 UTC, and they did somewhat something similar where they were taunting the player. Instead of actually having the settlement there, they just marched and set up camps right in front of their safe zone, and they were defending it too. So it's kind of funny. Even one march, you know, knowing that they don't have a lot of troops, but you know, just something that, you know, you kind of wanted to, you know, with them not really being aggressive, they have no troops left. You know, how do you get points, right? These are some things you can think about. How, you know, get in front of them, rally their tougher players, get a troop count down low enough to where somebody who doesn't have all the points accumulated yet, they can do a solo march and actually win. You know, some other tactics. You know, but defense, yes, it's better for them to just keep attacking you versus you attacking them if it can. But you know, in some scenarios, you may have to be on the offense. And I mean, yeah, I don't. I mean, that was the main thing. I mean, granted, you know, if they were all behind the safe zone, then you know, want to make sure you got all your marches out on the water tanks or in the building, getting points non-stop. And then when there's an opening or an opportunity to attack another person, maybe recall some of those people. If they're you don't want to miss the opportunity, then you just do a teleport if you have one available. I'd rather you use a free teleport than one out of your bag, but teleport so you can get all your troops instantly back, and then just go to town on a settlement, or reinforcing somebody that's about to get attacked. Those are some ways to get some points. But once you get the 180,000 points, you know, check the scoreboard, and then sit out and be an extra eyes and ears on the map, and try to get to your other teammates to get some points. You know, we did try to focus on the top tier folks, probably a little longer than we should, but you know, if there was such a big gap, that's probably why we spent a little time on it. But you know, I know Black in the, you know, towards the end, you were like, well, it's very hard to get points at this point. So you were like, well, let's see the other levels. You know, how close are the bottom folks getting points to get the next tier rewards, to at least get them upgraded. And we did a little bit of that, but you know, maybe that's something we should work on when we do. You know, we might have this opportunity again next week, where we can just kind of do that simultaneously.
So just to clarify there for Jen, because what he means by the top tier folks is that the top rewards of 180,000, it's quite hard to achieve in a normal raid for certain players. Normally you'll find players with higher plasma levels will reach those goals easier, because with stronger level troops you're doing more damage personally, so it's easier to reach those thresholds. But yeah, we were coming into the raid, obviously it's the first time ever for us being overpowered to the other team, so we were kind of excited, like, you know, fingers twitching, you know, let me hit something. And our general voice chat the whole time was just talking and saying, this is boring, let's try and find points for people to do. It was a raid of just sitting around waiting for action to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, once it came clear to us that they ran out of troops, this I found out by accident. I solo marched the strongest player to see how much he had left in his base. I saw he sent his best march to attack someone, and I attacked him, and he only had 300k troops left after the first 20 minutes into the match, having wasted them on many rallies on our buildings. So at that point, it became very clear to us about how little troops the enemy actually had to kind of do anything, and it made more sense why they're just kind of happy to sit in safe zone and send the odd march here and there. But yeah, if it comes to a situation where you outpower another enemy and you have more members, it's kind of making sure you're splitting up those points as much best as you can. And if everyone can't reach 180,000, so for us to think that initially it was quite unrealistic, you want to make sure then everyone's reaching, you know, the next tier, which is 8 gold fragments.
Right.
And in my eyes, whenever I approach a raid, you go in expecting the minimum rewards. So let's say you're going in, okay, we've lost, so we want everyone to get 5 gold fragments at least. So when you win, it's that much better. So for us, we had, out of the 28 players who turned up, and out of those 28, 2 of them came very late into the game. We got 26 people, 8 gold fragments, which was a huge win for us as an alliance, on top of the Reservoir coins, which will now help a lot of players develop their accounts even stronger to help us in other events and other raids going forward.
Yeah, I mean, and this is our second week, and we still didn't have a full 30 people participate, which is kind of alarming because this is supposed to be a very competitive event, especially after the next couple of weeks. But get in. At one point, I got into our alliance chat, just did another call out for anybody that's on our reservists to join in. It's always worth it, even if you're a late joiner, just to grab those rewards, even if you don't get high on the scoreboard.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as Jin said, there wasn't really much about in tactics because for the only points they really got on the board was at the start, where they went for the processing plant, one of the smaller buildings, which gives you only 600 rating. And I was sitting by the treatment center, which gives you twice that rate. And they sat at solar power plant, which Jin and I have talked in the past about how important it is with control times and capturing times. And I think for Jin's team in ground, they had the buildings from the start and just sort of sat there happy. For Sky team, we got ourselves into the main buildings. I sent my first march into the treatment center expecting competition there. It didn't come for a while, so I had to wait for me to capture the building or reinforcement to land before I could swap my marches. And then we rallied both the buildings back after a while with some coordination. My first rally wasn't filled because I went too quick. And then from that point onwards, we just dominated and held all the buildings the whole time. And then with water tanks, there was a bit of confusion, are they going to port out or whatnot? And after probably 5-6 minutes of kind of seeing what the enemy was going to do, it was clear they were going to predominantly be behind safe zone. It then became an understanding, okay, everyone break the hives, we're going to hunt them down when they come out the safe zone. And if they send a march to a water tank, certain people hit certain people who then they come in to get the points that way. But I feel that's pretty much all we can talk about today's raid. There wasn't really much to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think the overall theme was just, hey, just because you have a easy Reservoir raid match, there's always something you can strive to do. And in this case, is how do we get our other players maximum rewards, which wasn't easy, but it was fun. It actually made the game a little bit more fun as we were trying to get those points. I mean, I remember Stefano was yelling, "All right, you're out. All right, no more for you. Go hide somewhere." And then you're like, "Okay, I can rally this person. Who needs points?" It made it a lot more entertaining out of the match that was very, very boring. So I think it was something that our audience needs to see, because there's always something to grab, whether it's a win. Well, it's always going to be a win, right? Or rewards. It was good stuff.
So, one last thing on that, actually, I remember the point, is when we were chasing down the point thresholds, and I think in the last 20-15 minutes, when we realised, crap, there's a severe shortage of points here, and we're trying to get people to this next thresholds, we actually started calling out certain people who were in the gap between 90,000 and 180,000 to leave water tanks for people underneath the 90,000 threshold, so they could come up and get those points. Ideally, we would have them attacking, and we'd rally bases which were defending for them to get those points. But otherwise, in a situation where everyone's trying to get points and you realise not everyone's going to make it, you will have to ask people, you're going to get 8 gold fragments, that's a huge win, but to get you to 10, you can't. But if you leave this tank and that tank, you can get this person 8 gold fragments. So it takes some coordination, some looking. regular checking of the scoreboard to see what everyone's at. But if you don't voice chat during a raid, it's not the end of the world, but it certainly does make a big difference from an alliance who uses it regularly now.
Yep.
Sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting you, but there are some small letters in the general instructions on how to play a Reservoir raid and how to get points that we never take into advantage. For example, did you know that for every 10,000 troops you are killing while defending, you earn for your personal score 40 points, while for every 10,000 units you are killing while attacking a building, you get twice this amount of points, 80 points, for your personal score only, not for the alliance total score. So
That's a good point.
If we encounter enemies with few joiners and they are rallying our buildings, we can drop and re-rally. So that way we get double the points instead of defending.
Yeah, and we did talk about. That's a good point about the rate of points for the personal score. The only risk, which I mean, we'll probably still do something like that, but the risk would be, will they take the hit? Will they recall? I don't know. We'll see, but I have to dive into that. You do read the fine print. I like that.
So yeah, that's something we could talk about now.
Yeah.
There's two things which come to my thought. As you guys probably will see in these streams, I'm quite a negative Nancy. I think of the negatives first. If they're running a building, once it's marching on the way, unless the rally leader ports away, that rally's going to hit. They're committed to the hit, and it's a flat rate of points you'll get, whether you win or lose. If we were to pull out and rally back, it comes to a kind of, I don't know. As Jin said, they might pull out. It could be a situation if we're still in hives and they have more joiners, they're going after more buildings, that people won't have their marches back in time if they've all pulled out, because I'd have to send them back to their bases. And then for them to join the next rally to hit the building, I might hit the rally with a half full rally, and that might not be enough to take the building. Also for us today, obviously next week we won't have the need to do it. It was our first one where we were kind of going to see how high we could run the point scoreboard to see what was possible. But yeah, that's something which, in a situation where we're so dominant, yes, we could look into pulling out and have them hold a building for us to rally them back, provided they take the hit. You would expect them to.
Yeah.
And then
maybe not even rally with like a Mushu, just rally with another lower tier rally leader. If they know, I mean, because if they know Mushu's, like, if they find out that you're like the number one, player on the team, they might run, But if we get like Sharp T flexing his muscles, give it a shot.
They're little, but they're there.
they're not so little. Sharp, they're quite big.
This guy's 6'4". He's big.
Sharp's a bit modest. But yeah, I think it's something definitely to look into. But again, this is something which is definitely a situation where you're using this, where you have the breathing room to do so. So for instance, today we got over 500,000 score in raid, which is unheard of, considering most you'll see most raids being in the 200s, 200,000 score, or if it's been a bit more one-sided, maybe 300,000 and 180,000 sometimes. Not always the points on the map get capitalized, especially where the buildings are constantly changing hands, so a lot of the points are actually not being counted because of the capturing times. But when you have such a dominant lead and time to kind of give them the points and sacrifice the point rate you have yourself, for sure, something to look into. If it's double the points for taking a building, to do that. And that also then ties in quite nicely in terms of when we volunteered, and I know I did it myself with Mushu. I'll go next to the 5-star or 3-star if he was defending lots of hits, and I'd start a rally with one troop, because by that point I already had the 180,000 threshold, and that way our smaller players could join my rally, be the troop, deal the damage to that person, and they have my stats for it. So if, let's say, Sharp T was a HQ 26 amongst the RCs of plasmas, if he joins with a full march and I'm running with one troop, even if Sharp is the only person joining, chances of him attacking someone with my stats, considering his opponent's 2-star, 3-star, he probably will win or take a hell of a lot of their troops along the way with it.
Yeah.
So where possible, and for instance in a situation where I knew I didn't have to be in buildings for us to hold them, you want to have your stronger players rallying and your other players who are trying to hit those points join them. And
yeah, that's a good point. So just kind of leveraging
the full march. So you go.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, that's exactly right. So where I said maybe Sharp T rally them, you could still be the rally person, but just down your troops to give the other folks the ability to get more of the kills and more of the points, but to get to leverage your stats for the safety net, if you will.
And in raid, where your troops aren't going to be disappearing when you come back to base, if you have plasma 1-stars and 2-stars, with, let's say, 1 million plus troops, and you're running their best player, let's say in this case me with one troop, you can keep rallying them away, and each time you're chipping other rally leaders' troops away, and before you know it, by rally, let's say 5 or 6, because for some reason he's sitting here taking all these hits, you can quickly whittle down that person's troops, and your 1-star, 2-star there, who normally in a competitive raid would have been hit solo by that 5-star and possibly would have lost a lot of their troops that way anyway. They're getting a hell of a lot more points this way, and it's probably a hell of a lot more fun for them too. Attacking a 5-star, seeing how much they're getting, like, their bang for their buck with their troops.
Now, one thing I would also add. Go ahead. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was done there.
Oh, yeah. Knowing we got to saw like how this was going to play out from the beginning with the 100,000 point lead in the first 10 minutes. So knowing that we're going to end up burning troops to try to get points and whatnot, just make sure that you don't use healing speed ups just to try to get those points. Try to get the points with all the troops that you have, and if you get burned out, then tough luck. That's all you can do. Use your free healing speed ups to get some troops back and try to farm. But you want to be especially for Reservoir League, where the competition's going to be going on until you get kicked out. You're going to want to conserve your healing speed ups for the tougher matches that you have to win or you're out. So that would be the only other thing I would think of would be a good tip.
So as Stefan has taught us as well, is that when you're gathering water tanks in raid, all you need is one troop, and it's not like your normal map in the game where if you have one troop, when that one troop has its fill, it'll go back to your base. In raid, if you send one troop and it's sitting in that tank, it will sit there until that tank is empty or you get knocked out. So in this situation, if you say are zeroed out early on by a 5-star, you can use those 1 hour speed ups for free in the game. Is it like every 5 minutes or so, maybe a bit longer, and send your troops out to water tanks or into buildings, and you'll get that point rate generation anyway. And I think the main situation here is you don't want small players hungry for points just sending their marches out straight onto 5-stars, 3-stars, whatnot, and losing. And one of the main points I would see, and I didn't actually have much to say, is that when you're attacking someone's base, you don't want to be sending, past your first or second march at that point, your stats difference between your first and your third are too big. And as a 5-star, where arguably my third march and sometimes my fourth march is stronger than most people's first march, I'll rarely ever hit with my second march if I can avoid it, because you're losing too many troops needlessly that way. And if your first march can't win that battle, your second march won't be able to take it on. So I would recommend in that situation, if you're going to attack someone's base, just use your strongest march and keep sending with that march, because you're going to do the most amount of damage with that march.
We just like that convoy though. We like that convoy that goes and it's like 6 attacks, bam, 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 bam. I don't know, that's just me, but
So the only way I would recommend that is if the person is burning already and you're just trying to zero them out flat out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I mean, otherwise, like if I look at my first march to my 6th march, my stats get halved, you know, and it makes a big difference. And probably what we'll talk in other streams is what you want to be doing when you're attacking a base, to look into it.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're auto sending 6 marches, that's a good way to empty yourself of troops rather than the other person. So yeah.
all right. So just sum it all up, because we already hit past 30 minutes, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up. You have Sharp T, you have Black Strider, and you got your Dead Sun. I guess that's who he's going to go by. On the stream here, contributing to our debrief against State 285, Ph1, Reservoir League Round 2, UMC, our Alliance 1. Our takeaway is, hey, there's an opportunity when we're dominating to get everybody in our alliance points and try to. Sometimes offense isn't the best thing. You could be defensive, but you got to be mindful of your troop counts, and don't use your speed ups, healing speed ups I'm referring to, and save those resources for next round. But that's all we have today, and hope you guys come join us next week. We'll be going around 3 against State 257. What's our next man?
I'm looking now quickly. There's AUH. In terms of their schedule, quick rundown. They beat Ph1. It was a closer matchup than what we had today. It was an 80k difference between the two alliances. And today, sorry, I'm still getting the schedule up. They lost to EDC, the team who was arguably stronger than us last week, but they weren't smart in the way they approached the raid. And the scoreline difference between us and Ph1 to them and AUH was closer, which was nice to see. So considering EDC's strength and AUH's supposed strength, next week should be a bit more competitive and a bit easier, hopefully, for our players to reach those point thresholds.
All right.
AUH is State 266.
10-4. Looking forward to that. And yeah, so join us next week, and we'll let you know how it unfolds. Thank you, everybody, for watching.